when you got the phone call saying you're going to be our head coach?
Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. Freaking excited.
You created the go-go offense in college football.
Immersed in trying to figure out, how do I create an offense where even if you don't have the best players, you still have a chance to win games. And I always say hope is not a strategy. It's about your habits. It's your daily habits and your consistency and your discipline that's going to get you to where you want to be ultimately in the end. As I always say, at Texas, we have more money than God, but we're definitely doing okay. We're doing well. Some people are meant to take directions, and some people are meant to give directions.
Coach, appreciate you joining me, man. Excited to have you on. Wanted to get you on for a long time now. I know we did this a couple years ago, but excited to run it back. And now you're a head football coach, man. Congrats.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you, brother. Pennsylvania guys sticking together.
I know. This. I followed your journey for a long time. I remember seeing you on the Pitt football practice fields back in the day, man. I mean, just how far you've come in a short period of time, and congratulations on all your success. It's cool to see you finally get into the head coaching chair. I want to dive into that though. What was day one like? Getting that call, getting the actual job, and being a first-time head coach?
Oh, it was awesome. I mean, our president here and athletic director, and then, my agent team of Clutch Sports, Carl Reed, Nicole Lynn, Rich Paul, those guys, just all of us just celebrating and being excited, me and my wife, family, mom, and especially being like in this area, obviously Northern California is special to me. I played JUCO out here and was a high school head coach out here. So I know the area really well. So to be back somewhere where we had, some semblance and, knew, thought it was, just an amazing opportunity to get started as a head coach here.
What was the moment like when you actually got the call? When you got the phone call saying you're going to be our head coach?
Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. Freaking excited. Tears, happiness, all those feelings of, like when you first sign your first scholarship, you find your first NFL contract, all those same feelings, like when you score that first touchdown, it was awesome.
And then you started recruiting right away, I'm sure, right?
Oh, yeah. When it was thought that I would get the job, that was, I recruit 365 days a year. I'm always recruiting. So, that was one of the things when I got the head coaching job. You know how it is when you're an assistant, you bring up guys that you really liked and they're like, no, I don't like this guy, but you like them. It was like, man, finally I can get all the guys that I liked, offense, defense, special teams, I can get them in here.
Yeah. When you got this Sacramento State, what was the first thing that you realized, I want to change this right away, or I need to fix this right away?
Yeah, just the infrastructure on how that they went about servicing the players, getting the unique experiences that I've had in, the NFL, CFL, Power Four, getting to see the biggest programs and how they treat the players. I just wanted to make sure that we took care of the players in every aspect that we can control as a school. And our president was all in on that. That was one of the reasons he, wanted me to fulfill the head coaching position here. And so that was the biggest thing for me, is just making sure the players had everything that they needed to be successful. As far as the way that we fed them, the way that we, training room, weight room, snacks, protein, all that stuff. I'm just making sure that they had, the ability to be uberly successful with the way that we treated them here.
Yeah, you've had success at so many different levels of your career, but for a few years, your name would come up for head coaching jobs, and it seemed like you kept getting passed over. What was that like? What did that teach you about yourself and about college football as a business?
Yeah, I remember the first few times that I interviewed for head coaching jobs, that started in about 2018, around 2017, 2018, after we had the good year at Howard, started interviewing for a couple head coaching positions. And I was trying to, change and be the way that I needed to be for the interview to go the right way. I think when I got my heart broke by my alma mater, University of Tulsa, I thought that I have a chance there, and they had, really passed me over pretty quick. And after that, I was kind of like, you know what, I'm gonna just be my absolute self. And if they hire me, great. If they don't, oh, well, I'm doing pretty good, as a coach right now, and when on God's timing, when it's time for it to happen, somebody's going to be okay with, the cowboy hat and the tattoos on my hand and neck and the Pittsburgh, mentality. They're going to just be okay with that. And so, obviously that synced up here, and it was awesome to find like-minded people that embraced who I was here.
Yeah. Was there a moment when you wondered if it would ever come, if a head coaching job was going to come anytime soon?
Yeah, absolutely. You start to thinking like, okay, what else can I do? You lead your
Yeah.
group to be the best position group. You coordinate at a high level. It's kind of like, okay, what other box do I need to check? Do I need to, now I'm second guessing myself on, do I need to go be an NFL coach? Do I need to, like, what else do I have to do? And so it was great that it just all worked out in the time that it did.
Yeah. What did that teach you about yourself? Any lesson you learned during that time?
Well, yeah, I always talk to our players about not skipping a letter. In the process of becoming great, you have to hit every letter, A, B, C, D, E. You can't skip one. And I think that's what it
Mhm.
did for me. I think I was just on a journey where, when you look at where I started off as a high school head coach and then going through college and GAing and just working, truly working yourself up and working up through the levels. Now I've kind of seen every realm of what I needed to see, took notes, learned from some great head coaches, learned from great players, different organizations, how schools were ran. And now I have a wealth of knowledge, at a very young age, because I tell people all the time, I was broke in my 20s. I failed. I took the jobs nobody wanted. I did all that stuff, so I had the opportunity to learn and be curious and grow. And obviously that led me to where I'm at now.
You've coached in a lot of different conferences. Think about FCS and Mountain West and Pitt and ACC. I mean, how did those different jobs in the different leagues all around the country shape really your edge as a coach and who you are as a head football coach now?
Yeah, I always tell people it really started with my childhood. I moved every year of my life growing up. And, some years we'd live in the projects, some years we'd live in like we lived in, suburbs, we lived nice, And so you have to have great communication skills when you change schools every year. You always start off as the new kid, you're getting in the fight, then like, oh, we like you, you're good at sports, da da da. You start to build that rapport with people and they start to figure out who you are. And so, that's kind of always been my calling card as I transition jobs is, I had teammates from Florida, I had teammates from California, I had teammates from,
Yeah.
all these different areas. And, that's really what I learned. Like your communication skills travel, the way that you go about your business and the way that you operate as a coach, like the way that the tough, hard nosed, old school way of coaching. I think I have all those traits, because I am an 80s kid and I was, grew up military. So I have all those traits. But I also have like the ability to let players have fun, be themselves, and be able to figure out kind of where they're from, get to know their culture a little bit, and then help them create new norms. And I think that's what I saw, that I really did have something that was unique from other coaches who might have only lived in one region or one area. If you're like a Jersey guy or a PA guy, you've only kind of been in that area, then you get asked to go to California or something, like, man, these kids are strange. But I went to junior college in California, so I kind of know what the California area is, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I think that really helped me, that the journey that I've taken has really helped me.
Yeah. What's a story from early in your coaching career that defines your grit as a head coach today?
Yeah, I really think it's, Chip Kelly always says the thing about, leaving the good to go for great. And I just remember when I left being a high school head coach in Pennsylvania, Waynesboro, Pennsylvania, I had a really good situation there. Like just won coach of the year, like the program was rolling. Like it was a good setup for me. It was really, I could have stayed there for the rest of my career and it would have been, smooth sailing, and when I took that jump to go to college, I mean, that first year of, being a quality control guy, being in the background, just grunt work, learning the ins and outs of football, and then, having to transition from that, not getting the job that, I thought, okay, I played for these guys, right? I thought, man, they saw my work ethic. They see that I'm a good coach. Like they're just going to immediately catapult me to a position coach or a coordinator. I'm on the fast
Mhm.
track, you know. They're like, nah, man, you gotta go keep working. You gotta go figure it out. You gotta go coach.
Yeah.
And so then I went to a NAIA school in Kentucky Christian, Grayson, Kentucky. Then I went to a D2 school, Oklahoma Baptist, and it was like, man, this is getting ugly now. This is not the glamorous, you know, going from Arizona State, you know, to going down. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
is this really going to work out? Making less than 10 grand, you know, it was just like, you know, and that's where I was really like, you know, and I was still being able to help kids become, you know, all Americans, all conference, and recruiting big classes to those small institutions, D2 and NAIA, and then getting the Howard job. You know, when I got the Howard job, I just remember like I'm big on like fasting, and I know people, you know, I get into weird stuff sometimes, but I'm into fasting. So I fasted for like 4 days, and I remember I got 2 jobs at once. I got the Central Michigan job from Coach Bono. He was my special teams coach when I was on the
Uh-huh.
Dolphins. He remembered me and he was like, "All right, I'm gonna give you a chance at Central Michigan." And then Mike London, right? He called me
Yeah.
and he just got the Howard job. He left Maryland, went to Howard, and he was like, "Man, you know, I had took my high school team Waynesboro to a 7-on-7 camp that he had in Virginia, and we did really well there." And I just stayed in contact with him. And he's like, "You ready to run that high school offense that you ran? That was pretty cool." And I was like, "Wow!" So I went from sitting in a D2, living in a dorm, you know, like just praying every day and just like hoping, like,
Yeah.
man, I hope this works out, you know, because I was really I'm gonna have to go back to being a high school head coach again. Like this college thing's just not working for me. And, you know, I was able to get up out of that dorm and, you know, obviously go to Howard and be a coordinator and get rolling in my career and really start to go to where I needed to go. But there was 2 years there where I was like, man, I might have bit off more than I could
Yeah.
chew. Like, you know, like I don't know if I'm gonna be able to take care of my family and do this way.
Yeah, one of my favorite pieces of your story is you didn't just run an offense or call plays at a high level. You created your own offense. I mean, you created the go-go offense in college football. Where did that go-go mindset come from? How did that come to be?
Yeah, so when I first got into high school coaching, my first year of high school coaching, a guy had asked me just to help out. I really didn't want to coach. You know, I was still making money from the NFL and I was hurt.
Mm.
And one of my friends, Sam Mirza, he's actually an agent now. We played junior college together. He's like, man, you should go over and help kids. You're just partying every day. You're not focused, you know. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
man, I'm not trying to coach kids, you know, like whatever, you know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
and, you know, I went out there to the field and just loved it. And, you know, really all I did the first year that I coached, I just mentored kids, helped them out, you know, and took care of them. And that's really the part that I love, just being able to like help kids.
Yeah.
But like scheme wise, all I did was just copy what Coach Malzahn did at Tulsa. You know, what we did when I was a player. We are obviously one of the top offenses in the country. You know,
Yeah.
Gus went on to be, you know, obviously one of the best OCs. So I just copy and pasted what we did from there. But
Yeah.
then I went to a school called Harker Academy where it was just, you know, kids from affluent backgrounds, Asian Indian kids, super wealthy, well-off kids that had never really didn't have much football background. And that's when I started trying things and getting curious and creative. And I started watching football from like, okay, the 1900s, you know, the first game, Rutgers, all the way till up to date, and just, you know, just got immersed in trying to figure out how do I create an offense where even if you don't have the best players, you still have a chance to win games, you know? And
Yeah.
so, you know, I was led to the option, right? Because the option, you can have undersized linemen, you don't have to block certain people, you can leave people free, the quarterback can get you out of a bad play. And so it just, you know, one day I just had you know, just that aha moment of, okay, I can marry all these offenses together. You know, I can put, you know, the pro style West Coast drop back passing game together with, you know, RPOs with the triple option and make all the runs in the triple options. Like you can put all this stuff together. And, you know, the great thing about starting at the lowest level, you know, I took over 2 high schools where they were both came off of, one was 0-10 and the other one was 1-9. Like, you know, there was no expectation other than to win one game and just field a team.
You can try whatever you want. Yeah.
And so I did it at both of those schools, and I didn't have, you know, we had maybe I'd one Division I player at one school, and like I didn't have like it wasn't like I was out there blessed with a whole bunch of talent. And it was crazy to see like we went and we're like the top offense in the state of Pennsylvania or top offense in the state of California, and we're running like something unique, different. And Coach Mousen always said if the players believe in it and you can practice it and execute it, like it'll work. And I saw him. It was really the confidence from seeing him take his high school stuff that he did and bring it to college and roll, right? But it was also the mindset on just trying to figure out how. I didn't believe in just telling the kids you're not good enough. Like I didn't think that was good
Yeah.
coaching to just say, hey, you're not good enough and we're just going to lose. And, that other team's better than us. I want to find a way to give the kids an advantage and win. And so ultimately that's what led me to creating that offense. And then, when we won at Howard, the first game against UNLV, it was the biggest upset in college football history. That's when everybody gave it like the go-go name, because we were in DC and all that stuff. And it's kind of just, I can't go anywhere now without being, you're the go-go guy, like, so that's, I've kind of just embraced it now. At first I was like, I don't want to be known as the go-go guy, but now I'm like,
Yeah.
that's kind of my thing.
Yeah, now you got to embrace it, man. And it's gotten you a great reputation in football. There's a lot of people that want to study that offense, and I know go to you as the expert in it. During your coaching career, assistant coach, head coaching interviews, what was the toughest interview you've had?
I always tell the toughest interview I had was Waynesboro, Pennsylvania, become head coach in high school. I mean, Waynesboro, Pennsylvania is a different town. Like you got to be from that area to kind of know what that entails.
Yeah,
But I just remember like interviewing with like 12 different people, like in a boardroom, 12 different people just grilling me. And I'll never forget, they said like, why you? And I got up and I went to go stand on the table, like, like telling them like I can get this done. And I was 26 years
yeah,
old. Like I got up, like I was going to get on the table, like I can get this done, just need an opportunity. And they gave me a shot. And like, really, what I say, like, and this is for a lot of coaches out there. And like Todd Graham taught me this. He's obviously had like 15 to 16 head coaches in college. So he's
yeah,
like figured it out on who to hire and who has it. Right. And, a lot of these times these interviews are just they're not authentic. They're not true to, like really going to get you, so a lot of times you're like beating yourself up because you felt like, you didn't, they kind of know who they want to give the job to, right? Like,
yeah,
and all the job interviews where you have to interview 3 and 4 and 5 times, you're like,
yeah,
it's it's very rare. Like, you know,
yeah.
uh, I always give credit to Coach Narduzzi because he actually had a real football interview. He was one of the first
Mhm.
coaches that I had been a part of where he had a real football interview. Like you actually broke down your game film. You actually talked about your techniques. You actually watched your film from your team. So you could get a real evaluation of that coach and what he did. Most people, they're going to call their friend and ask another friend and say, all right, boom, we're going to give you a chance. You know how it goes. It's not really like, oh, you get in there and you can really break down your scheme and what you're going to do and how you're going to do it and your days of what you do. It
Yeah,
really doesn't work like that. People have in their mind, everybody has like their favorites or who they want to kind of have. They have this image in their mind. So
yeah,
that's why I thought it was very, like it was very well thought out. And I really felt really embraced by Sacramento State, by the president and the athletic director, because they flew to Vegas, in the midst of me, the interview with UNLV and the interview with other schools that were, interviewing me. Those guys got on a plane and came directly to Vegas. Where do you want to go eat? We'll meet you anytime. Where do you want to go? And that's how
yeah,
I knew, like, okay, these guys are serious. Like, this is a real opportunity.
yeah.
It wasn't a cold phone call of, all right, what are you going to do on the first 30 days? Like, it was a real sit down,
Yeah,
genuine, authentic, get to know the person who's going to be the CEO of the school, right? Who's going to lead this
yeah.
program, right? Because the football coach is the face of the university.
But was there anything that was harder than you thought it was going to be as when you got the head coaching job?
No, I think the one thing that you have to like, you just have to pace yourself. Like me
It's a lot. Yeah.
wanting to be, the best recruiter, the best scheme guy, the best, like you have to
Yeah.
pace yourself on the standpoint of like, you're dealing with everybody's needs, and I thought about my grandfather used to always say, to whom much is given, much is required. Like that's really what goes on when you're a head coach. Like when you're a position coach, like you got 12 guys, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, you take care of 12 guys' needs, and it's pretty simple, right? It's not, it can get, there's a couple players can be challenging, right? But when you're the head coach now, you're dealing with the needs of the players, the coaching staff, the administration, the boosters, the alumni, the future boosters,
Yeah.
right? And then you're adding agents to the mix,
Yeah.
so there's a lot of things that just keep coming across your desks nonstop. And if you don't just pause for a minute, and just, take a deep breath and not make everything is not the 4th of July firework, not everything is like such a big thing. You kind of have to compartmentalize each thing that comes across your desk and not just be in a panic about, everything that you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, because there's just a lot that, entails. And as far as everything that you're responsible for, every single thing, there's not one thing where it's not, you can't say, oh, that's not my job. When you're an assistant coach, well, you're really only responsible for this and you take care of your
Your
responsibility.
players.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like, no, everything that happens is your job. It's your fault. It's your responsibility. So, the great thing for me is I hired a great staff and I have a great administration that supports me here. So, I'm able to delegate things, and I can give a guy a job and I don't have to be like, oh man, that's not going to, I know that for sure that guy's going to go get that done for me.
Yeah. Yeah. You've experienced a lot of the recent changes in college football as a recruiter, as an assistant, now as a head coach, of the NIL, the transfer portal, what's going on in our sport. What do you think is broken in the current NIL system, and how do you think it gets fixed?
Yeah. I just think there's a definitely a disconnect between the player, the agent, and the family, right? So in all of these cases, there's a third party that comes involved, and the third party has an interest for themselves or an interest for that school, right? The
Yeah.
parent and the player have a certain interest. And I don't think collectively all the time that those groups are together, right? So you could sit down with a family. I've been in situations, you sit down with a family and you have an agreement, or you think like, okay, boom, we're good. And then some guy comes in or an agent comes in, um, and then has a different agenda than what the family might have told you. And it's on both sides. I mean, it could be for the coach and the university, it could be for the player and the family. Like there's just all these different agendas. And I think it's hard when you're talking about 18, 19, 20-year olds, right? That was hard when you go to the NFL, and it's just standard contracts. And you're like, okay, how am I going to live? How am I going to get here? Like you're trying to figure all that stuff out as a player with an agent you barely know. And now you take that kid who's even younger and a family who has no really background in that. And we're all trying to make sure, right? We're all trying to like make sure we don't get screwed over, make sure there's liability in there. And I think that's really the hardest part right now. It's just trying to get everybody on the same page, do what's best for the kid at the end of the day. But everybody has their irons in the fire, and they're trying to figure out what's best for them. And sometimes we miss the part of, it's still about these players and these kids being successful adults and getting them a college degree. And right now it's just so money driven. Which to me, I think about guys like myself. I thought, man, I'm going to play in the NFL forever. I just had a great college career, back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. I'm like, man, I'm going to make it.
Yeah.
And you don't, and you got nothing from school, and you're like, you're still back to square one where you just have a degree, which, it puts you it gives you a little bit of a head start, but you don't have anything in your bank account, like you don't have a slush fund of money in your bank account. So, I don't think that I believe that the players should get paid, and they definitely deserve that. from their hard work. I mean, these guys, as you know, I mean, if you're a student athlete, you're
Yeah.
you're working your ass off and doing a lot for the school. I think
Yeah.
it's hard right now for all like everybody to get on the same page and do exactly what's right for the kid because everybody's trying to protect themselves a little bit. I mean, you have to, from
Yeah.
the what ifs and what could happen. And, that's the hard part.
Yeah. How do you balance being a player's coach who has great relationships with the guys, who the players have a lot of love for, but you also got to make tough decisions as a head coach? You got to make business decisions about money and who gets what and who and what roster spots do you have. How do you kind of balance that dynamic between being a great players coach and also doing what's best for the program? Real quick, guys, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor on this podcast, Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best way to fire on sports. I've tried all the different apps, sports books, daily fantasy. Prize Picks is the way. On Prize Picks, you're picking players instead of teams. So if you know sports like I do, you can make a bunch of money, especially with the free $50 bonus. So the code NEXTUP or the link in my description. All you gotta do is deposit $5. You get a free $50 in your account that you can use, go 10x, 100x, turn it into whatever you want. Code NEXTUP, $50 bonus, link in description. Let's go.
Yeah, I think you have to start off on the front end just being truly yourself and honest. I think that's what's made me a great players coach throughout my career. Just this is me, scars and all. This is who I am. This is where I'm from. This is what I'm about. And, players respect that. And they come, I always say if you share your testimony, somebody's more willing to open up and become themselves, the best version of themselves. So, I think that's the first initial part of it, having a real authentic relationship. But I think the hardest part now that kids struggle with is just feedback. When you give them that feedback, it's from a place of love. It's not a place of, I don't believe in you or I'm criticizing you. It's a place of like, I want to see you become your best self and this is where you're at. And I have to give you that feedback, to help you get there. And, 90% of the kids get it and they go where they're supposed to go. And 10%, have that resentment and take it personal. And, they feel like the coach did them wrong. But I think if you start off on the front end being open, honest, authentic, and then you give them feedback, daily, weekly, monthly on where they're at, then when those tough decisions need to be made, they at least know, okay, this guy at least shot it to me straight. He didn't try to hustle me, or he wasn't like, stoic and never said a word to me. And, I don't know who this guy is or what's he's about, And I really think like when I was at Texas, I was like, one day I was telling Sark, I'm like, bro, just tell him your story. You need to tell him like who and I really think that changed the way Texas has changed the landscape there. I think it really changed the program there. And I thought, I've always kind of been that way. And I think that's hurt me sometimes in my career because other coaches don't typically like that for a guy to be, just himself and open and brash like that. But that's me and that's all I could be. So I think for our program, that's what we try to do. We just try to give these kids the absolute truth, exactly where you're at. My first day on the job, my first team meeting was like, fellas, half of you guys won't be here. I mean, every day it's an interview. You're fighting your ass off to prove that you should be here. Right. And that's just the reality of college football. And so there was nobody that went there. Nobody when we had an exit interview who we had to let go or, they, weren't up to par or wanted to go somewhere else where it was hard feelings because they knew, on the front end, they got told exactly what it was.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite quotes that I've heard you say a couple of times is one great year can change your life. And I've seen you post about it. I've seen you talk about it. Well, what does that mean to you? What does that saying mean to Brennan Marion?
Yeah. So that really comes from, once you see a miracle from God, like you can never unsee that. Right. And so, for me and my story, it was, I went to junior college. My first year did not go well. My uncle passed. I just had a lot of adversity and I was a victim. Like I'm not saying it was anybody else's fault. I was just, every time something happened, I was like, woe's me, like I just didn't know how to really overcome adversity like that. I didn't have much structure in my home. So I just didn't really know how to overcome that. My emotional intelligence wasn't high at the time. And so what I did was I stopped making excuses, and I just said, you know what, this year is going to be the year. And every single day, it was all about like this year has to be the year, and I'm gonna give everything I possibly have every single day. I'm gonna empty the tank and try to be my absolute best. And I did that, and I became an All-American. I was still homeless. I was still, but I was able to make the dean's list, get a 3.0, get my AA degree, get out of junior college. And then, I always say you just have to restart every year and repeat that. Like every day,
Yeah.
I don't think about what's down the road. I'm not worried about that. I know, I'm thinking with the end in mind. I heard somebody say they create movies, and they do the last scene first. And so I always say, like, okay, what's the last scene? The last scene is me being a winner, whatever that winning thing looks like for me. What's my why? What's my purpose? What am I trying to win? What am I trying to accomplish? I think with that every day in the back of my mind, and every day I'm just emptying the tank. I'm giving my absolute best and wringing the rag out every day. I'm trying to, just get after it. And once you see that happen, and I always tell it, like, every year I can just show examples of guys who, I think about Jordan Addison, like, all right,
Yeah.
bro, like, what's your wildest dreams? I asked him. He's like, man, I want my mom, my sister. I want everybody to get a house on the same street. I want to win a Bolitnikoff. I want to win a championship. I want to be
Yeah.
1,000. I'm like, all right, this is the plan that you're gonna have to do to get this done every day. And he did it every day. And then boom, it happened for him. Right. And same with it, Xavier. There's so many guys that have taken this thing in teams, like, and that's really what it's about. It's about, when we really break that down for guys and they understand it, then you see them start to really, because a lot of people are thinking about what's at the end, and they're not really going hard. They're hoping, right? And I always say hope is not a strategy. It's about your habits. It's your daily habits and your consistency and your discipline that's going to get you to where you want to be ultimately in the end. But once you see that one great year happen, now for the rest of your life, like, all right, I can go in anywhere. It's like you, bro. Like
Good.
you said, all right, I'm going to media now, boom, and I'm gonna dominate media. It's like, because
Yeah.
you had dominated as a college football player, you had dominated as an assistant coach. You're like, all right, boom. So what? Now what? Here we go. Next thing, media. I'm dominating that.
Yeah.
And you put a plan together. You stay disciplined to the plan, and now you're rolling, right? And that's really all that's about.
Yeah. What's something that the media or fans may not understand about the business of being a head football coach? Like the actual business behind it, contracts, negotiations, all the sports business part of it. That because it is a big business, right? Like it's a big deal when you're a head football coach.
Yeah, I think the media does not see that if you're the head coach. I always say, like, I equate everything to you're the point guard in basketball, right? I played point guard all my life. You're the point guard in basketball, and I don't think that they realize if you're a head coach, your job is to put everybody in a position to make the shot on your team. Like,
Mhm.
and they think like, okay, head coach, it's all about him. This guy gets everything, but really, my whole day is trying to figure out how do I get everybody in position to live their dreams, right? So I've had guys already get poached from my staff. We haven't even, but it's because of the way that we're recruiting. We're number one in recruiting already. We're top this, we're top that. And they're trying to figure out, like, how are they doing things over there like that, right? And it's teaching all of my guys, like, I always say it's like using your gift, right? You got to use your gift. And so my gift, I'm sharing my gift to these guys every day, and they're putting themselves in a position to be successful for their families and what they need to accomplish. But I don't think a lot of people really get that when they pressure a head coach or they say crazy things about a head coach. Just in general, they don't understand that head coach is really sacrificing and serving the team, like, and everybody on the team. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
that's more of the, and even as we get, like, when you're first into college football, you're like, damn, that dude gets everything. But you don't think about, like, all his day-to-day tasks and everything that he has to accomplish as
Yeah.
a coach, right? And how he has to set everybody up and make sure it's an environment where everybody can grow. I always say in our environment, you'll feel safe, you'll feel loved, and you'll feel like you matter. Like, those are
Yeah.
things that, people don't really get a chance to see from a head coach. They just see the guy standing on the sideline ripping people's ass on or Saturdays or Sundays, and they think, God, that guy's, like, they don't see that the guy just, made sure this guy moved here. He made sure this guy had the right diet. He made sure this guy was training this way. He made sure this guy got to the
Yeah.
chiropractor. Like all the different things that you have to make sure get done every day.
Yeah. What's the NIL support like at Sacramento State?
Beautiful, beautiful. I mean, beautiful.
You got the money? Yeah.
I mean, we're not Texas. I always say, at Texas we had more money than God, but we're definitely doing okay. We're doing well in the standpoint that when our players show and prove that they'll be compensated for their abilities and their work ethic and the things that they bring to this university.
How much does your family mean to you in this journey? I think one of the best parts of becoming a head coach, you mentioned your family already, is you get to bring them along on the journey with you. What's that been like?
Man, it's been awesome. Like for the standpoint, like my son's a pitcher, right, in baseball. He loves
Yeah.
baseball. That's his deal, and just the unique experiences and opportunities a kid gets to get. Like I didn't have a dad growing up, like he wasn't around. So like for me, everything I get to do with my kids is like a big deal because I'm like, man, do y'all know like how cool this is?
Yeah.
So my son got to throw out the first pitch at the A's game. Like those are
That's cool.
experiences that just like, wow,
Yeah.
like he'll forever remember that. Like he got to play catch with the pitching coach, like those are things that you just can't, you can't get if you're not a head coach or in
Yeah.
that position. And so, for my daughter to not have to worry about, she can pick any school she wants to go to and I'll be able to take care of it, and her really not, having that pressure of worrying about, I always say like for me, all I need is a fast car and a flat screen TV. Like don't even watch TV that much, but when I do want to watch it, I want to watch it on like a decent sized TV, right? And so
Yeah.
that's really all I need if it was for me. I just because I need football. Like that's what I love to
Yeah.
do, right? But for my family to have, their to have financial freedom and be taken care of and not have to,
Right.
grow up the way that I did. That's what it's for me.
What was your first purchase when you started making the head coach money?
First purchase.
New car or something? Nothing?
Oh, got a car, but that's because we left the other car in Vegas, and my fast car. So I gave my daughter my fast car, and I had to get another car. So we got a couple cars, just got a place to live. Nothing crazy.
What do you want your players to say about Coach Marion 10 years from now?
I want them to say that he truly put us in a position to win, and he gave us everything that he had.
I love it. I love it. Who's the coach that you feel like has had made the biggest impact on your life?
Yeah, there's a few. Man, that'd be tough to not give all those guys the credit. I mean, I still to this day, I mean, just it's hard for me to even say my little league coach's name, Keith Hutchison. I mean, without getting emotional, but I mean, that dude fed me, took me to practice, all that stuff. So obviously him, Coach Norvell. I wouldn't have a college degree if it wasn't for a guy named Howard Irvin, that was the dean of the college where I went junior college, and Coach Norvell waking me up every day, 5 a.m, being on me about everything and making sure I crossed the finish line there. Coach Malzahn for, giving a JUCO kid a chance, him and Todd Graham saying, all right, we're going to give you this scholarship. It's your last scholarship. Make something happen with it. And then obviously Coach Graham. I mean, Coach Graham, and he got me into college football, and he gave me a chance at two different schools to advance my career. And, that obviously forever grateful for that. And then, Mike London, he was the guy who taught me what truly about like you can coach and be a great dad. Like you can be a great dad and coach. You don't have to sacrifice your kids to, climb the ladder. You can have your kids around, have your kids involved, and still go to their things and do what you need to do and still be a great coach. So a lot of guys, man, but obviously those were the guys who had a strong, stronghold on my heart.
Yeah. I feel like for guys who become uber successful like you have and a head coach when you're super young, there's a defining moment in their career or life at some point where you feel like you have what it takes to reach an extremely high level. What is there a moment you can point to in your career where you said to yourself, "Man, I am ready to be a head football coach, and I know I'm going to be a damn good one when I get that opportunity"?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was really one was getting the respect from Coach Whip.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's tough. Tough guy to get respect from at times, man. He's tough.
I
I love him
mean,
though.
that was the angriest old man I had ever been around, and I was just like, man. But I finally, like I got him, and I understood. Like he was just not out there to just play around. Like it was serious business, and he was about
Yeah,
winning championships and doing everything right. Like not wasting time, not playing around. Like let's do this thing absolutely right now. And really,
yeah,
like I had seen other coaches that had that kind of, but he could always bring it back and have a little bit of fun. And he knew how to teach
mhm,
guys and knew when to be on them. Like he just had that innate ability to do that. So getting his respect, I knew like, okay, like when he said, man, like, gave me a hug and helped me, advance and move on. And, I just knew that like, okay, I'm really getting where I need to be in this thing. And then when I went to the University of Texas of being around like the top coaches, guys that had been, at the very height of their careers, had been at the top places, NFL, SEC. Um, when I knew there that I could be a head coach from the standpoint of like culture wise, like
yeah,
they're like players that were in rooms with like big time coaches would come to my office and ask me about position drills, would ask me about how they played, would ask me about, these guys are still like, I'm at Jade Barron's draft party the other day. He invited me to come and he calls me out like, thank you, Coach Marion. Right. Like he was a DB. Like I didn't coach the DB. I coached the receivers there. But he would come after practice and like work with me, like defensive end, like different players would, and to still have relationships with those guys. That's when I knew, like, man, I could be a head coach at a big school. Like I always thought I could be a head coach, like at a, you know what I'm saying. But I didn't know, like, okay, the extent of it. When you're there, when you're with 4 and 5 star players, you know how it is. When you're in the big time, you're with like real guys, right?
yeah,
These guys that just came off national championships, these coaches that I'm around, and I have that type of rapport with the players and respect from them. I knew that I was like, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to roll. And then, being with Barry Odom at UNLV for 2 years, him just absolute trusting me with the offense and not worrying about anything that happened on offense. Just
yeah,
solely like that's your deal and you got it, and not ever worrying or stressing or what are you going to do here or what are you going to do there, and like just letting me have that, and that's I'm like, okay, it's about that time for me to go run my own deal, because I had a guy tell me this and I'll never forget it. He said some people are meant to take directions and some people are meant to give directions. Sample,
yeah,
he's a young coach at Oregon, young Sam, but that's what he told me, and I never forget that. I mean, I think about that every day, and I'll have the ability to move people in the right direction and create a system for people to grow.
yeah. Man, I love what you said about Coach Whipple because that's so true. I played for Coach Whip at UMass. He ever get on you at all at practice? I've heard him get on some assistant coaches now.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Marion, what are you doing with your guys in the
Yeah,
meeting?
yeah. Voice gets all high. He's the best, man.
Yeah,
I love
yeah,
Coach Whip. I love Coach Whip.
absolutely.
What does success look like at Sacramento State? How are you defining success right now?
We got to win. I mean,
Yeah,
all this NIL, all this, I mean, all these recruits, all this, stuff. I mean, at the end of the day, it's about the product that we put out on the field, right? And it's about going to win. I mean, anything else is fluff, like that. It's really about going out there, putting a quality product out on the field and winning at a high level, and getting this place to where we want it to go. Obviously we want to lift this place up. We're waiting for the FBS announcement here shortly,
yeah,
and trying to get into a major conference. And so for us, it's about, creating that momentum and steam and getting this train rolling downhill. And that comes with winning. I mean, nothing else is going to get that done. You can't buy that. You have to go win.
Yeah. What when it comes to, I know we talked about NIL a little bit. When it comes to how you're balancing what players are worth what, that's a big part of your job now. You got to decide, if I have a budget of $5 million, just throwing numbers out there, I got to decide, how much am I paying my quarterback? How much am I paying my lineman? How are you kind of deciding that right now from a roster management standpoint?
Yeah, I think you have to acquire great talent, right? As far as, sometimes you have to extend yourself a little bit more to go get talent that's not supposed to maybe be at your level.
Yeah.
And then you have to reward the guys that have shown and proven results and are culture glue guys. I think it's always important to have those guys that are really your team, who make up like what your team is about. Like if you say, okay, we want to play hard as hell, we want to do A, B, and C, and those guys do that every single day, and they are freaking walking billboards for your team, then you need to reward those guys as well. And so that's kind of where we're at. I mean, we acquired some really, really great talent. I mean, we got a guy coming here that runs a 10 flat who's in the national track
Yeah.
championship. Like we got some really, really great talents that have yet to really prove themselves. We have some talents that have came here that have proven themselves already. And so they
Yeah.
earned money already by showing that, quality game reps. Coach, this is where I at. This is what I could do. I've already shown and proven that. And then we have some glue guys here that we're taking care of. So, because a lot of times these kids are working summer jobs and stuff like that. We want them to do an internship if it helps them for later down the line. But we really don't want these guys to do anything but be working out, training, taking care of their bodies, and becoming, real professional, in the standpoint of their approach each day with the football, and being students. And so we're taking care of those guys as well. So everybody's going to get something. Not everybody is, we're not, nobody's driving around campus in a Lamborghini here yet, but we're definitely making sure guys are well taken care of here.
My last question for you, Coach. What's your why? What's the reason you do what you do every single day?
Yeah, it's always been my, my mom and my kids, and now obviously my wife, getting married, my family. But it's also like my why now is like my former players and my current players, and this is one of the things, like what I told you when I learned from Coach Whip, and I really grasped this concept because I was kind of always this way, but I didn't know like how to
Yeah.
control it. But it's really just not letting the guys down. Like I have such a short amount of time with these guys. And I always say, like, I'm not trying to play God over these guys. I'm just a guide, a mentor, a big brother, however you kind of want to look at that, and I want to make sure while they're under my, tutelage or responsibility, that I give these guys every tool to go be great fathers, dads, husbands, providers for their families. And sometimes that's tough conversations and hard, but that's really my why now. It's just, for the former players that are rooting for me, that like, man, Coach Marion's my guy. And then my current players, to make sure that I lead these guys where they need to go so they can be successful for life.
I love it, man. It's been fun following your career. Like I said, you're setting the standard for a lot of young coaches out there. What you've done with creating the go-go offense, and I have loved, and you and I have talked even offline before, and I've loved how you have battled for head coaching jobs, and you knew what you wanted, and you've gone after it. And I know your personality. You willed this thing to happen, and you wouldn't take no for an answer. And it's impressive to watch. It's inspiring. I love how you talk about one great year can change your life. I've thought about that a lot when I left coaching, and I knew if I had one great year in media, it'd change my life forever. And here we are, both of us, man. So it's been fun to follow you.
That's right.
Appreciate your friendship, and I'm excited to watch you dominate the future of college football, man. We'll have to try to come out there for a game this fall.
Absolutely. Sacramento, the state capital of California. You have some fun out here.
You got to do it. Yeah, I love it, man. Awesome. Appreciate your time, Coach. Thanks for coming on.
All right, brother. Thank you.
Next